Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your hosts Edward McQueen and April Garner.
All right. Good evening. Good evening. Live is the best time. That's right, when it's live. Good evening. I'm your host, Ed McQueen, and of course, my dear sister, April Garner, the co-host here on this informative program. We are in good spirits today, not as always, but whenever we're talking about our youth and what we can do with their minds, I think that's a gold mine. Did that rhyme? Yeah. But, that's a gold mine. So we're into the point of renewing our minds, April, and we've got somebody who can. We're talking about our youth again. Somebody can really give us some inside thoughts on and his services that he offers, and he's been in for a while. I believe. It's something that we can't get enough of. I mean, we're renewing. We're going to give this topic as renewing minds. And April, if you could continue on with that, I'd appreciate it, because I think you more in tune with the gentleman, our guest, than I am. So I appreciate it.
Not a problem at all, Brother Edward. Before we get started, we just want to remind our guests, and first of all, thank everyone for tuning in. We know that there's a lot going on right now in the city of Conway and around Horry County. So, we're having a great broadcast today, a great topic. We appreciate you tuning in. I just want to say that, of course, today is the special election runoff, City of Conway City Council seat that's up for grabs. And so, maybe by the end of the broadcast, Brother Edward, we'll have some news that we can broadcast. You never know.
One way or the other.
And one way or the other, we'll have something to say about that special election seat that was up for grabs in Conway. But aside from all that, today we are talking to Jonathan Bennett Jr., who is the owner and principal counselor with Renewing Minds Mentoring and Counseling Services. And as Brother said, he was giving us a little play on the name of the business. But, what we're talking about today is it focuses on youth mentoring and the dynamics of the family unit as a whole when it comes down to making sure that any type of mentoring that a young person is going through is a part of the family system or the family network. Because when you have a strong support system in terms of your family and the entire group is involved in the mentoring process, it makes for a better experience for everyone involved. And so Jonathan is going to talk to us about that idea as far as the family dynamics and how it impacts youth mentoring. He'll talk more about his mentoring program, but also about the different services that are provided through his counseling service. Now, Jonathan has been so successful since he's launched his business and his counseling services that he's currently not taking new clients, but he is an expert on this topic. And so there's several things that we're going to talk about today, including behavioral issues versus mental health, family dynamics when it comes down to mental health and counseling, and also, medication and how all of that plays a role in the mental health and the counseling process. And so we're going to bring him on now. And Jonathan, it is certainly a pleasure to see you. How are you doing?
I am doing pretty good, April. It's just a joy to be here, and I thank you all for having me on.
You're absolutely welcome, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us tonight. This platform is always used to educate the community on very important topics, critical topics that that people are always searching for answers for, and for the Black community particularly, this type of a topic is something that is not always talked about in family circles. And when we go back to how things were back in the day, or traditionally, even the topic of mental health was taboo, and still is in a lot of ways. And a lot of Black families don't really talk about it, and sometimes you just don't talk about the things that you really don't understand. And so that's why you're here today, and we encourage our audience to ask questions, to drop comments. Jonathan is definitely willing to answer any of these questions. So, but Jonathan, before we get into all that, why don't you give everybody a little overview of your background and how you actually got to this point as far as opening Renewing Minds?
Yeah, I'll just kind of sum it up, and I think it's been a leading since 2000, roughly 2010. I was converted and became a Christian, following the Lord, and I landed at a Father's Place where doors opened there. I had no idea what I wanted to do, leaving my undergrad, and I was working in fast food restaurant. And I worked my way up there, and the doors open at a Father's Place where I got a chance to work with those guys. And the exposure that I got there to the men and the struggles that they were having, and I just wanted to do a little bit more. And that was where I found kind of the leading, where I felt like God was calling me to further my education so that I could provide those counseling services that were needed. So from there, I went back to school to get my master's, and I did that here at Webster University, and left Webster University. I finished there, and a Father's Place was a great kind of a nurturer for me. They grew me up. I say that's where I grew up and grew into a man. And from there, they literally just passed me like a baton to one of the local agencies in the area that I still currently work with, the Center for Counseling and Wellness. And it was there. I kind of knew all along I was going to do private practice. I felt the leading in my heart that God was calling me to do a work, and specifically with young people. And so I got trained there at the Center for Counseling and Wellness, and they helped me to kind of really connect the pieces from community mental health service provider to more of a therapist. And I learned there the skills that I needed to branch out into private practice. And they just, all the people that's been a part of my life, they're still a part of my life. They've been just kind of walking alongside me the entire way and just kind of encouraging me and applauding me on. And that's how I landed here with private practice. And so I still keep in touch with a Father's Place, and I just texted them not too long ago. And I'm still working with the Center for Counseling and Wellness there, becoming a supervisor for therapists there.
Man, it's a heck of a road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You deserve a pat on the back. Too bad we're doing it by way of television. You deserve a pat on the back, man. Really proud of you there. That's, and
Thank you.
It's a journey that I think it should be noticeable and recognized. Okay.
Yeah.
So did I interrupt you, April? You were about to say something?
I was just going to say that it was same thing you said. Very impressive road to where you are now, and it sounds like you found your why and your purpose, and you walked in it, and with divine guidance, and that should let everyone know that because you are living a purposeful life, it means that you're going to pour into, or that you should pour into, the people that you aspire to help. And I think a lot of times people get into career fields, Jonathan, and they think, it's going to be lucrative, it's going to be this, and it's going to be that, and they don't really realize how much they're impacting someone's life with just the simple things that they say, or even the very hard things that they say. And so, but you've taken a course that allows you to deliver messages and services and help to people in the way it's supposed to be done. And in such a critical field as the mental health field, that's highly important, especially when you're working with the young people, and in particular the young men that you're talking about. Because at this time, we all know that, we're living in a day and time when, as they say, the plight of the Black man is something that is very prevalent. We can't talk about it enough, and I think that we talk about it too little. A lot of people don't understand it because they have not walked in a Black man's shoes. I, for one, will never walk in a Black man's shoes, and all we know is what we see on TV and in the movies and all of that. And so there are a lot of influences, and there's a lot of things that are just pressing on, young Black males, and I'm sure that your services aren't just focused on young Black males, but since, I have two wonderful Black gentlemen here on the screen, I'm going to focus on that particularly tonight. But also, I think it's important for people to understand that, they don't have to feel ashamed if they realize, okay, I have something going on behaviorally or mentally, and I need help. And so, what I'd like for you to touch on as we get into this conversation is, how you actually found a way to approach those types of really delicate situations so that you could, go into counseling or start a counseling session with someone, because I think that's why people don't always seek it out. They don't know how to get started. So, tell us a little bit about what you do in that regard.
Yeah, and to kind of just, I guess, elaborate a little bit more on what you're saying, April. It's actually the tides are turning, and we are seeing more and more African Americans kind of seek out therapy, and it's kind of exactly like what you said. The traditional, what goes on in our house stays in our house. Not feeling like you can actually speak out on things that happen to you. A lot of people feel like they would be stigmatized if they do come to therapy. It's not a Black person's thing to do therapy. We're seeing a difference. I will say the majority of my population is probably Caucasian, but I'm seeing more and more African Americans come, and it's usually through word of mouth. It's like the family members that give it a try, and then they go and tell their cousins, or they tell their aunts, or they tell their uncles, and they pull them into therapy. And I see it kind of expanding in that way. So it is a thing that I'm sensitive to. So whenever I do get the minorities or African Americans that come into therapy, I'm very intentional to tell them that it's a courageous act on their part to do what they're doing. I let them know up front what they can expect during the process. A lot of times I have to tell them, take your mask off at the door. When you come in, don't, when you leave, you can put your mask back on. But when you're in here for the hour, just let your hair down. And I guess because I'm an African American therapist, that's just made it pretty easy for me to connect. I'm from the country. I'm from a rural area back home, and I am who I am at my core. And so it's very easy for me to connect with people of my race. And I think that makes it a lot easier for people to kind of start seeking out therapy. But on the contrary, I've had some African Americans that said they actually feel more comfortable with someone that's not of their same race. Maybe because they feel like that person would know them too much to be able to be who they truly are. And so I've seen that happen as well.
Yeah. Well, whenever you were doing your work at A Father's Place, and of course, obviously you encountered a lot of males, all walks of life, and I'm sure that led to some ideas and the vision that you have for today. As you've worked with the persons who've come through your office, can you kind of give us a general overview of some of the issues or challenges that they face that actually give you the indication that there's a behavioral or mental issue that they're dealing with? Because I'm sure when they come to you, they don't know what it is. They just know they need help. They need a therapist, or they need something. But how do you discern behavior versus mental, and what do you see most often?
Yeah. So most people that come to therapy, I know my behavior is wrong. I just don't know why I'm behaving this way. Okay. Mm-hmm. So people have told me, or I know that this behavior is inappropriate, but I'm just struggling to understand why I keep doing what I'm doing. And some people, they know why they're doing what they're doing. They just haven't been given the platform or the safe and secure environment to be able to talk about it. So when they come to therapy, it's like, John, I know why I'm here. I just need to be able to get this out with somebody. And so rapport does make a difference there when you develop that rapport when you first come in with that person. So I think for some people, they come because people in their families, their friends, or they've just crossed that threshold with their expectations where they know, hey, I always said I wouldn't be doing this, and I've just recently started doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I need help. Okay, and so that's when they start seeking therapy, and we're just here to meet them wherever they are, and not being judgmental when they come in. And so the cases from a father's place, the men that I work with there, that actually birthed that desire in me to do more. I remember having to refer young men and men to Waccamaw Mental Health because we weren't actually certified therapists and counselors there. And so we did a really good work there and help as far as helping, but we just couldn't cross that line to be able to provide additional services. And so that was where things started for me. I remember just sitting at a staff meeting, and we were staffing some of the guys, and I just really wanted to do more. And but we had to know our limit, and we had to say, at this point, we need to refer them out to another agency. And we did that, but in the back of my, mind and in my heart, I was just like, man, I'm not happy with this. I want to talk with them just for 10 more minutes. I want to have another 30 minutes with him. I believe I can get through to this guy. And so when I told them that I wanted to go back to school, they were on board. They fully supported it. They pushed me to do it, and they supported me throughout the process. And so now I use those times as a way to just remind me, the importance of what I'm doing. Most of my is result in some type of situation or matter where there was a father not engaged, or maybe an abusive father, or the lack of engagement on the father's part, or the father being engaged in the wrong way. So a lot of that was my foundation, and I still continually build off of that.
Mm-hmm. So, Jonathan, one of the topics or the bullet points, I guess we want to make sure we touched on tonight is that difference between behavioral and mental health. So explain that to our audience.
Yeah. So mental health, it kind of is like an umbrella, right? But the behavioral, some things that I see with clients, some things that I see with the people that I work with, it's like they're having behavioral issues due to maybe something that's going on currently in their family, due to it being like maybe my parents started to be harder on me and more stricter on me. My school, I'm struggling with the transition from middle school to high school, or I'm struggling with peer pressure, or I've started dating again after a long period of time, and I have these behavioral issues that bothers my partner. So we can do like behavior modification stuff to address just that issue, just that specific issue, to try to change it so that it doesn't really exist anymore, or it kind of dwindles away. Mental health issues are more your deeply rooted issues, right? So like struggle with depression because of some grief from losing a loved one that passed a while ago, or my parents divorced a long time ago and I never healed from it. So I'm struggling with complicated grief, or I'm struggling with suicidal ideation, or I'm self-harming and I don't know why. I feel like I have to keep going back to this. That's going to require maybe more long-term or therapeutic services. So some things, I see some kids that I have, it's just behavioral stuff. And I'll tell parents up front, I don't think this is something that they're going to need to spend a lot of time in therapy for, but I can introduce you to some techniques and things that you could use to help modify this behavior. Okay. And then other things I'll tell clients or parents, hey, this is something that I feel like is deeply rooted. this is an issue that they're really struggling with, that's a little bit deeper, it's going to require more time in therapy, and it may take a little bit longer before we see certain results.
Mm-hmm. And I like the way that you described it, because I think that people probably tend to just lump it all into, one bag, but you have to use different methodology based on whether or not it is purely behavioral or purely mental, and even emotional. How does emotion tie into even those two things? Because I feel like, it's like building a layer salad, everything kind of mixes with everything. And so, you can't leave that part out, right?
Emotion, I see that as emotion kind of being in the middle, kind of tug of warring with the two, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As a CBT therapist, a cognitive behavioral therapist is what I am. I believe that triggers create thoughts. Thoughts lead to emotions, and emotions produce certain behaviors in us. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, my emotion is going to be in the middle, and it's going to be creating this behavior. But the reason why I'm having this emotion is because of what's going on in my mental capacities up here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my mind creates this emotion, and this emotion causes me to behave this way. Right. So when a person comes to me and says, I need to stop drinking, right? I'm struggling with drinking. That's a behavior. Some people would say, well, you know what? Let's put things in place to modify that behavior of drinking. I see that as a deeper rooted issue, right? So I'm not going to tell them, hey, just try to not go by the liquor store today. Let's put the liquor store further distant. Let's go a different way. That when I leave work, don't go past the liquor store. That's more of trying to modify the behavior, not the drinking. But the only issue with that is it doesn't address the deeper seated issue. So what will happen is you'll get the what's called the replacement theory, right? It'll be like I left the alcohol, but now I'm smoking cigarettes. Okay, so
which is worse.
Which is worse. Okay. So I would say the behavior, I'm not going to focus on modifying that right now in therapy. In therapy, we're going to get to, hey, how are you thinking about this drinking? What's going on that's creating these emotions in you that's causing you to want to go to this alcohol here or to the cigarettes here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thus renewing minds. I like that, because it is all about changing that mindset. And you're right. You can find detours around their patterns, but it doesn't mean they're going to stop doing what they were doing before. And so that's important for people to understand, for people to hear. When you have to deal with these behavioral and mental health issues with certain clients, how do you approach the family about being engaged in the therapy or the counseling or the behavior or even behavior modification or the mental therapy tactics that you're trying to use?
Yeah. So most of the time it's a behavioral thing. It's with like children who are like maybe like 12 and under that I'm really focusing on behavior modification for, because they're not so in tune on how their thinking affects their emotions and behaviors. They're just going to look at you, like a deer in the headlights if you try to talk to them about that. So that's where any young person that I work with that's a minor, I also pull their parents in. So if they're under 18, their parents are coming in with them as well. And so every one of my sessions that I start off with a young person, the parents are required to come in every session for the first 10 minutes. And that's just to kind of give me an update from their standpoint, what they're seeing, because a young person will come in and just say, hey, I'm fine. Everything's been great this week. Okay. But the parent will be like, they were really having a troubled week this week. So I bring them on board. And a lot of times the issue that the kid is kind of demonstrating, it's actually stemming from something the parent is either not doing correctly or maybe being confused in the message that they're sending. And so it requires me to kind of pull, sometimes I'll meet with just that parent or parents, and I'll bring both of them in, and we'll talk about what parenting plan they have in place at home, how they discipline, how they reward, all of those things. And usually that's where the issues are stemming from, and it's creating mixed messages for this child. So the child starts acting out because there's no consistency at home. So bringing parents on board to say, here's how we're going to address this behavior. When it happens, mom, dad, this is what we do. And that consistency usually creates a stable foundation for that kid to start thriving and changing behavior.
We have a question that was actually posted on the network Facebook page, and the viewer asked, what are the reaction signs or activities from young adult kids after their parents divorce? And so I think this is a good time to kind of segue into that, because we're talking about family dynamics here, and the role of family and the parents in what's happening with the child, so or the young adult kids. So that's the question. What are the reaction signs or activities from young adult kids after their parents divorce? What do you typically see?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So what I typically see is, the behavioral issues that start to occur, like just kind of acting out or not listening and following directions, isolation, kind of demonstrating that they're emotionally distant by just wanting to be alone all the time physically. So I'll see that. I'll see depression, the tiredness, the fatigue, kind of dragging when they were kind of a upbeat type of a child. You'll see kind of almost like the just the nonchalant attitudes, a lack of concern, care about anything. Substance use is a very good one. Just kind of a change of friends, I guess. Change of it's several different signs that could actually happen from that. Just a different attitude towards the parents, and just kind of isolating themselves. That's usually the biggest sign. Just acting like nothing bothers them. That's another one. Whereas we would expect for things to bother them, acting as if nothing bothers them is actually a sign that something is bothering them. It really just depends on the how the separation took place. But those are things to kind of watch for. I tell parents right away, as soon as you know that things are going to be going in a different direction with you and your spouse or husband or wife, to go ahead and start talking about therapy for that child. Get them, maybe even before you tell them about it, start looking into it already, so you can say, hey, this is what's happening between mom and dad and I. We still love you. It's not your fault. We're deciding to go our separate ways for such and such. To help you get through this transition, here's what we're going to do. Have that as a part of their plan, getting someone that they can actually talk to who are not mom or dad.
Right. And what you just described is definitely the right approach. You would think it's the rational approach, but even the parents sometimes aren't always as rational as they probably should be. And more often than not, I can imagine that they approach it the wrong way. So what are some wrong ways to approach your child when, let's say this is a divorce situation in the home, and you see your child is acting out in whatever way, and sometimes parents will chalk it up as, that boy's just bad, or, she just don't want to listen, when really it is rooted in what's going on in the home. What are some of the wrong things that parents can do that will make the situation worse?
Yeah. I think prodding is one. Just kind of trying to pry at the situation to get them to talk. That will actually cause them to kind of, play more, because this is new for me. I don't even know what I feel. I don't know why I feel what I feel. And you're asking me all these questions, right off the bat. So that can be one. that's probably not helpful to engage in. Talking to the kids or children about what the other person did that led to the divorce separation. I tell parents to just be neutral. It should be a conversation that they have together. And anytime the child does ask about what happened, it should kind of be something that they're okay with saying with that other parent there too. Because at that point, the child is kind of already thinking, I'm going to have to choose sides, right? So if mom starts telling me things, it automatically obligates me to keep it from dad, or vice versa. So you don't want to do that. That's not going to be helpful. And just to kind of not do anything, right? Just almost to not try to make an attempt at asking them how they feel, but to just kind of blow over it like nothing's changed. Hey, you kind of knew, you saw this coming, so it's not really a big deal. I didn't really have to talk to them about it, and not really giving them that space to talk about it, and not watching for the signs that we talked about. Not watching for those signs, just kind of, yeah, I know something. I know I expected them to be kind of sad, but I didn't really notice anything. So there should be an intentional watching for the slightest changes, so that they can pick up on things.
So, Brother Eddie, you have a question or something?
Yeah. How long have you been in business? How long have you, unless you said it earlier, I don't know.
Yeah, here since 2021.
Since 2021?
Order June 1st, 2021.
Wow. Yeah. You sound like you've got background that goes beyond that. Before that.
Well, and I humbly accept that, and that's ultimately due to a lot of the people that's invested in me, the time that I spent at A Father's Place, the time that I spent at the Center for Counseling and Wellness, my life's experiences through my walk with the Lord. All of those things have helped me to kind of glean the knowledge that I have, and I'm actively a part of an ongoing group that of counselors that I seek counsel from too. So all of those people poured into me.
It's so interesting, and this is what attracts me the most, is that about your youth, that it's sort of youth mentoring. What I can conclude and say that it is, but you mentioned that as one of the services that you all provided, right? So, do you find that the most challenging?
Okay, yeah. So,
yeah, you see where I'm going.
Yeah. So, before even undertaking this, I knew it was probably going to be the biggest challenge for me because of the age group, and not to mention there were young men. But there was definitely no other way that I would have done anything differently. I wouldn't have chosen a different group of people. My time at A Father's Place taught me that I needed to really reach young men. During my last few years at A Father's Place, we had actually secured a grant to start working with young fathers, ages 14 and up.
Wow.
And youngest father was 14 years old when he had his first child. And so I thought moving from the 18 up would actually allow us to catch those young men at an early stage to help make some changes in their lives. And it did. But I remember towards the end of it, I started to realize even these young men have already made some of the mistakes their fathers have made. So I remember talking to Mr. Evans there about trying to reach a younger population, and I told him that that's where I felt God was leading me, and so that led me to say, you know what? Let me try to reach that young male group before they become fathers and help them through those years 12 to 17, which I call wilderness years, in a mentoring group experience where I walk through life with them, giving them someone to look at in a positive way. So that's where that group came from.
Right.
Well, that's powerful that you had the insight to do that, and just the vision to do that. Wow, when I hear a statistic like that, Brother Edward, that there are young men out there becoming fathers as early as 14. 14, you're still a baby yourself.
Yeah.
And it's what 14. You're in middle school.
That's ninth grade. That's ninth grade.
Yeah, yeah. About to go into ninth grade, exactly. So that it's definitely needed, and like I said, I'm sure it's across the spectrum. And so we talked a lot about family dynamics, and of course, that one question kind of took us in the direction of talking about something that really can impact just about any family, and that's divorce. I know you mentioned earlier grief, and a lot of people tend to not really understand how young people deal with grief and transition, especially when it occurs in the home and happens with people or two people that have raised them, like parents and grandparents who, pass on. And if a child has not been introduced to the concept of death and what, end of life transitions are all about, then it makes it really difficult for them to deal with that adjustment. And so do your services actually kind of dig into even that side of counseling? Because I know that there are probably a lot of young people who've had to deal with that, especially in that COVID era when people were just, leaving and they couldn't really wrap their minds around, okay, this virus thing is taking people, away from us. So have you had to deal with that as well?
Yes. Yeah. April, I'll see if I can touch on that. And I think what I've seen from that, April, the young people grieving, I've seen young people getting their narrative from their parents. Okay. So a lot of times, parents will bring in the child for grief counseling after they've, experienced the death of a loved one or something of that nature. And a lot of times the parent is tearing up more so than the child. And so that child doesn't really have something to look forward to reach acceptance, because not only do I have to overcome these unknown emotions in me, mom or dad is showing me what's up ahead. And so I always tell parents, you have to give your child a narrative to read. So if you're struggling with the grief, the loss of your mom, that's understandable. But no, you're also modeling how to recover, how to grieve successfully. And a lot of parents, unfortunately, they haven't successfully grieved loved ones in their lives. And so we do things like we celebrate the death anniversary of the person. And people, they think they're honoring the person's memory, but in fact, they're actually delaying the grief process. And so the people watching them, there was a young lady that I was working with, that I'm working with now. Her grandma and mom came in and said that, they said that the young lady was struggling with the death of her great grandma. And I said, wow, okay, she hasn't even mentioned that to me. She's never said anything about that. And so the one time that her mom came in and they started talking about it, she said that this past week she started crying when we were talking about grandma. And when her mom left, she actually said, well, they were crying, and so I thought it was, they said it was okay to cry. And so it was actually, they were struggling with the grief. And so that's the message that they passed down. This is a very sad thing. It should hurt us. It should make us cry when we talk about her. It should cause us to relive that experience over again. And so she's taken on that narrative. Yeah, that's something that really upsets me. But she mentioned nothing of it without the narrative of her mom and grandma.
That's deep. I'm Brother Edward. You don't think about the fact that, and Jonathan, this is my interpretation of what you're saying. We don't even realize that we're creating triggers.
Yeah. I'm looking for that word.
Yeah, we're creating triggers, and we're exposed to triggers.
Yeah.
But we are, unconsciously creating triggers as well. And I never thought of it that way. Keywords you said, you're modeling the behavior, that you're passing down that behavior. So you're right. Because how else is she going to know how she's supposed to deal with the transition of a loved one or, a friend or whatever? I mean, it hurts, yes, naturally. But if someone is creating a narrative that is not really rooted in healing, but always pulling back that scab on that wound, then yeah, she won't know how to move past it and be able to smile through the great memories instead of crying at the sound of the name. You know what I mean? So that's interesting. It really is.
And when you use the phrase grieving successfully, I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. So after in the psychology world, after 1 year, it's considered complicated grief. And so a person has a year to fully grieve in the psychology world, but after that year, it's considered to be complicated grief, which means that this person, maybe somewhere along the way, let's just use the grief stages, they got stuck in one of those stages and they didn't fully or successfully make it to the stage of acceptance. You go through denial, you go through anger, you go through bargaining, depression, and then ultimately you end up in acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a person who struggles with complicated grief means somewhere along the way, they got stuck in one of those stages and never made it out to the end. So it's been 5 years and they're still crying or struggling with emotions even after 5 years of this person being gone. It's been 20 years and they're still struggling with anger of what that person did. And so they didn't fully reach acceptance with that. They've gone through a breakup or a divorce and they are stuck in bargaining. They're still thinking maybe there's still hope that this could work out. And it's been 15 years and the other person's already married again. They got stuck in one of those stages and they didn't successfully grieve.
Mm-hmm. That's deep, brother. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's really.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so if they're stuck, how do you get them unstuck? Is that your role that you play?
Yes. So, wherever they are, I'll actually kind of put some diagrams up when they come in and I'll ask them, I'll share the grief stages with them. And we'll talk through some other things that may have been triggering for them. And I'll let them choose, hey, based on these descriptions, where do you feel like you are? And a lot of them know. They know right off the bat. They'll once they get the descriptions of the grief stages, they'll be able to say, hey, yeah, I know that's me. That sounds just like me. That's where I am. And we'll start from there unpacking things.
Mm-hmm.
And my job is to not push them, but to affirm them where they are and help them to get to where they want to be. So a lot of people, they don't even have in mind. I like one woman that I'm working with. I'm sorry to take you. I know we have.
Oh no, you're fine. No, you're good. You're good. Mm-hmm.
But there's a woman that I'm working with now where she lost her son in a car accident, and she blamed herself. She blamed God. She blamed the paramedics. She blamed the fire department. And that was 6 years ago. Okay. And so she came to therapy, not even to really get over her son. I don't say get over, to successfully grieve her son. She came for some other things, but in the talking, a lot of the emotions that she felt was just stored up from not successfully grieving her son. So we had to go back to that place of anger. She identified that she was in anger, and we had to talk through the anger. We had to talk about what anger was, where it came from, why it was present concerning her son. And then she was able to move forward into bargaining. And it's almost like you could see her walking through the stages.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came to looking at acceptance, looking forward towards acceptance, he doesn't have a positive narrative. She's angry with God. I don't see how his death could in any way be helpful and hopeful. So my job is to help her develop a narrative that's going to help her successfully move forward. And it has to be one that she adopts. I can't give her my own narrative.
Right.
That's what a lot of people do, and that's why it upsets some people. They'll say, hey, they're in a better place, though. You know they're in a better place. So just move on. And they'll get really upset with them because they're like, no, that's your narrative. That's not my narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you do you deal with people coming in wanted you to not cure them from alcoholism or the other vice of smoking? Do you get those kind of services requests?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, sir. Are you asking how I deal with that?
Well, if it's not too, lengthy because.
Okay. Yes. So if a person comes in with a behavioral issue like that, right, addiction of some sort, I rarely focus on the actual addiction.
Right.
I'm because they've had people that's pointed out to them their problem. They're tired of people telling them they need to stop anyway. So I would get no grounds with them in doing that. Instead, I looked past that. I said, hey, we're not even going to talk about that. Tell me what's behind the smoking.
Right.
Tell me what's behind the. What are you trying to cope? What unhealthy emotions are you trying to cope with?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the thoughts that's creating those emotions?
Yeah. That's interesting, man.
It is. It really is. And, the work you're doing is extremely important, Jonathan. And, the approaches that you've talked about tonight, that you described tonight, they're definitely eye-opening and enlightening. And, because, even in just the few scenarios that we talked about, we've kind of been all over the place with it. But still, when you talk about family dynamics, a family can be dealing with 10 different things at one time. And especially if they have a large family, there's so much that's going on at one time. So I'm sure, the impact of all those things really takes a hold and a toll on somebody's psyche and their ability to just function normally, to just breathe in a moment and get through a moment. And so, the topic today, of course, was the youth mentoring. It's a family affair. And I think that all the things that we've touched on tonight point to that, the fact that, you can't just send the young person out there to say, okay, now, go figure it out. Stop acting like that. Don't think that way. Everybody plays a part. Everybody has a role in taking that young person or even that family unit to a healthier place than where they are, at that moment. So I think all this is great information. And, one of the other things that we want to touch on tonight was the medical aspect of it from the standpoint of, medication therapy and all that. And Sister Joella, she posted a comment and a question a little bit earlier. Do you consult with physicians to address medical treatment if needed?
Yeah. Absolutely, but not necessarily me, but usually the parents would be speaking with the primary care. If I see a case that's really severe, I would actually refer them to a psychiatrist to really discuss medication of some sort. But usually the primary care physician during a checkup or something like that, that parent would have probably already came to me and said, the primary care, we've talked with them about that. It almost seems like therapy is kind of a second thought. It's like, we've talked with the doctor first, and then they've been on medication already, but it's still not really changing much. And so now we're in therapy now. And so I believe in everybody coming to the table. We call it medication assisted treatment, or MAT. I think medication alone is not going to do the trick that people are thinking it would do. But I think coupled with therapy, it could definitely do well for the person. And I think it's something that people will need to utilize in a way that gives them a window to figure out what the problem truly is. Mm-hmm. So that's why usually when a person goes to their doctor for an emotional disturbance of some sort, they'll grant them or they'll prescribe them a medication, and they'll say, please get signed up with a counselor, because they know I'm giving you this medication and your window starts. Okay. So find one that you can sit down with to really dig a little bit into what's going on that's creating these emotions that this medication is going to help you with.
Right. Okay. Another question that's come in from one of our viewers, Priscilla Fuller, she asks, how do you get parents to open up and give pertinent information to aid in the counseling?
I'm trying to, can you repeat that? I'm trying to understand what she's asking.
She's asking, how do you get the parents to open up and give pertinent information, I guess, during the session to help aid you in the counseling of the young person?
Yes. So I start off from the jump, bringing the parents in with the young person, or, since we're using that scenario. And I encourage them that they do not have to agree on their perspectives, but I do want them to share their perspectives and be honest with their perspectives. So parents usually come in kind of leading the way. And I'll tell them, if they choose to kind of sit outside, I'll pull them in and say, no, I need you in here if they're a minor. And I'll say, hey, you don't have to agree with what your mom is saying. Just let me know the areas that you disagree, and I'll make note of those as well. And mom, that's their perspective. You share what you're seeing objectively. And that would kind of let them know, hey, I don't have to try to make it sound the same as the other person. And I tell them, I need to know honestly. It's like a doctor. If you go to a doctor's office and you say, my only symptom is just I feel nauseous, they're going to prescribe something just for nausea. But if you tell them my head hurts, my feet aches, my back's hurting, my stomach's not, then they get a more of a picture of what they need to prescribe something for. So I let them know that up front. You're going to get what you give me. And I don't usually have any issues with them being open and honest. If I see it's that severe, I'll ask the one person to go out and have one in at a time.
Well, Brother Edward, I tell you, this has been some incredible information this evening, and I can understand why Jonathan is so busy and has a lot going on that he's not taking new clients right now. He's a lot to deal with. I mean, this world can be a lot to deal with, and just from the standpoint of trying to help people find a balance in their lives, it's an incredible endeavor. So if you had to, I guess, leave the listening audience or anyone who should happen to see this broadcast after today with some thoughts that will help them to understand how to navigate behavioral issues or mental health issues, the things that they're experiencing or seeing in their families, what one piece of advice would you give them as far as how to even deal with it or cope?
Yeah, I think finding someone that will listen to you, that you feel like you can actually talk to, that will actually listen to you, and being honest with what you're feeling. It's a courageous thing to seek out therapy, but on our side, we're waiting to encourage that person when they first walk in our doors, because we know the risks that are associated with coming to therapy, just opening up. But we got into this work because we know it outweighs it. The reward outweighs the risk so much, and the person is usually just so much better after seeking out therapy. So be encouraged and reaching out to someone. If you don't want to seek therapy, at least find someone who can be an emotional support for you that will actually listen to you. If you can't find that, there's plenty of therapists out there that's waiting to just kind of come alongside you, and you're not inefficient or anything like that because you can't deal with what you're dealing with. I need help as well. Everybody needs help, and so just kind of keep that in mind, I would say.
All right,
man.
Yeah.
Leave me in awe. I mean, April, we've had a number of guests who comes up with new revelations. I'm going, for lack of a better word, on a lot of stuff in their expertise, and and we've had many of them. And Brother Jonathan, I'd say you're in that top 5 up there, man. That spit out some information, really. And like April said, I can see why you've got a waiting list of, you're not accepting any more clients or whatever. But it's I don't know. And your background, just tells it all. Your journey that you lamented on earlier, it's quite impressive. And I guess I can speak for April also, that we wish you the best, man, in your endeavor. And next time when we talk to you, you have a double-sized office, right?
Well, I do appreciate you guys even for having me on. April, I thank you. I know we've been going back and forth trying to connect, but I thank you for sticking with it and allowing me to talk with you guys. It's an honor, and I'm grateful.
Absolutely, Jonathan. So best of luck to you in your business endeavor. We're definitely proud of you, and it was great, just seeing you open something on your own. And I'm like, that's that next level thinking.
Yeah.
And look, Brother Edward, I'm going to say this. Anytime you want to be a guest contributor to the magazine and submit some mental health articles from your standpoint, you can certainly do that. Brother Edward is always looking for content for the magazine.
Yeah.
But thank you. And I'm sure, there's going to be a time where we'll need to call on you again to come back and maybe, give us some more insight on a particular topic, especially if, as things happen in the world that we're all trying to process and trying to, kind of work through. Sometimes it's necessary to have guests like yourself to come onto the broadcast so that we can touch on those things and give people, some ideas on how to find the balance and move forward out of situations. I mean, in the past few years, there's been COVID, there's been George Floyd, there's been, all kinds of things that are going on that we are still dealing with. We're still triggered by. And so, in essence, Brother Edward, I'll say we all need a little therapy at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all need a little therapy.
Absolutely.
But it's admirable that you've chosen to work with a particularly young and vulnerable group who are, influenced by so much these days, so much more than we ever were influenced by. And so just keep up the good work, Jonathan.
Did we get his address for where your business is, April?
Well, he was telling us his business is on Beatty Street, but of course, since he's not taking new clients, it's not any place where anybody can just kind of come and
right. Okay.
But I can't
because I might just slap by.
What I will pull up Jonathan's website so that you all can take a look at the services, learn more about Renewing Minds mentoring and counseling services. And it's transformed at rmmc.com, and RMMC stands for Renewing Minds Mentoring and Counseling Services. So if you go to this website, of course, you can see more about where they're located and the mission and everything, his team, and get just more information. And I'm sure that there's a way to contact Jonathan, and if he can help you, I'm sure he will. But visit his website. Here it is. And, I think that will suffice for tonight, right, Jonathan?
If they'd like to, what we're doing right now in the meantime, for different pieces of advice, they can definitely come on the Facebook page. Awesome. And post questions, and we'll respond to those at our earliest convenience.
All right. Well, Brother Edward, this has been another wonderful show this evening. Really appreciate our special guest tonight, and I thought we were going to be able to get some election results, Brother Edward, but nothing has come through for in my channels. I don't know. Do you have any contact channels?
That's right. That's right. Nothing has come through yet.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see this evening and with the evening news. But thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Thank you for all the questions. And Jonathan, again, best of luck to you. And we should see everyone same time next week. 7 p.m.
Well, let's give them a break. This is the
Oh,
4th of July.
next weekend. Right, I forgot already. Oh my gosh.
Let's give them a break.
Yeah, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna shoot some fireworks.
Yeah, we're gonna shoot some fireworks.
We're gonna shoot some fireworks. Yeah, brother, I forgot about that. Thank you so much. Wow, 4th of July is already here. Woo, gracious. Summer will be over soon.
Yeah,
we can say it, but
after the 4th, on the 5th, that's when the summer starts on the down low.
On the downswing, I'm telling you. Well, anyway, everybody enjoy your 4th of July. Be safe, especially if you are playing with the fireworks. Enjoy the summer cookouts. 4th of July is actually one of my favorite holidays for just, gathering cookouts and fireworks and that kind of thing. But, be very careful, be safe. And then I guess we'll see you the following week.
With the guests.
With the guests, exactly.
God willing.
All right. Well, sounds good. Everyone take care.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner.